Hey, this is Jay, and this is a Monday.com invoicing system built in n8n. So it's a pretty straightforward system. It's going to hopefully grab our invoice items from the Monday.com board. We've got an invoiced group here. So we're going to grab these items. We're going to use the details from some of these customers, and including the amount, to be able to fill in this customer invoice spreadsheet with the particular data for those for each customer, generate a PDF, and then reattach it back as a file to each of these items in Monday.com. So to start the system off, it actually runs on a scheduled trigger. So it's going to use a cron job. So this is going to run Monday through Friday. So that's 1 through 5 at 9 a.m., noon, 3 p.m., and 6 p.m. So it's going to run 4 times a day. And then I'm going to first off set some values that we're going to reference in the future. n8n is not great at updating cells specifically in a Google Sheet. So that's why I'm going to predefine what those cells are. So those can be changed in the future if needed. So if they get moved around, you don't have to redo too much of the system. But then once we predefined our values, we're going to then grab all of the items in Monday.com from that specific board and from that specific group. So let's go ahead and do that. We should get our items back. So we got our 3 items. And then we're going to loop over each item. And first, we're going to actually check and see what the status is. So in this case, the goal actually at the end is I'm going to set the status from working on it to invoiced. But in this case, we're going to make sure that we haven't already done that. Ideally, I guess you're actually going to have probably like an automation or something that'll move things down into invoiced. And you can do that inside of Monday.com instead. You don't need n8n for that. But just to be safe, we'll make sure that, since this is running at a schedule, if something happens, we don't want it to keep trying to generate invoices for the same thing over and over. So that's what this first step is going to be. Let's go ahead and test that real quick. So I'm just grabbing the status value from the n8n item. So that's actually my second column here. I just grab the text value and drag that in. And then I'm checking to make sure that that value is not equal to invoiced. So if it's not, then we're good to go. And again, you could actually probably use this in the JSON node to have that kind of more easily referenceable, because we're going to use it at the end as well. But in this case, we did that check. The status is not invoiced yet, so we're good to go. So what I'm going to actually do next is then create a copy of an invoice demo template. So that's what this document was. You could technically use the same document over and over and just keep changing the values for the next customer. But just if something goes wrong, you don't want to actually accidentally have somebody else's values when you generate the PDF. So I think it's better to just go ahead and create a copy. In this case, I am actually just going to let that copy create where I have the template. But you could specify a different folder if you wanted it to go somewhere else. So in this case, though, I am going to name the document, so customer invoice, and then we're just going to add the name of the current user. So I'm just grabbing that value from Monday.com here. There we go. And attaching that text as part of the name. So that way when we create the document, it has a unique name. So if we go ahead and do that, we should get a Google Sheet document back. Perfect. So then like I said, I'm just kind of dumping these in my demo folder, but you could have your invoices folder or put them in a customer folder or whatever. But I've got a document now, and it's still a copy of that document. So there's no values in it yet. It's still placeholder values. So after that, we needed mostly the document ID. So now that we can update that document. So we're using a request node here. So HTTP request, and we're just going to call the Google API's spreadsheet API instead to be able to say, hey, just update these cells directly instead of trying to use n8n to loop through all the rows and update things based on that. So mostly the problem is if you have some particular formatting or whatever, you have to actually update the entire row. So you might be overriding any kind of formatting. So it's better to just call the cells directly. So that's what we're doing here. We're going to do a post to the Google Sheets API. You should, if you hopefully have already had your Google Sheets account connected, you can just use your credentials, so you don't have to do anything there. And then we're going to send in a JSON body. So this JSON body is where we're going to use some of those values that I pointed out from earlier, where we predefined. So we set the edit fields earlier, and now we can just drag in those name cells, or drag in each cell where we need it. So in this case, like I said, by default, it's sheet 1, so I just left it as sheet 1. But if you were to change the name, you could just drag in sheet name and then exclamation point, and then the cell that you want to update. So that's the range of stuff that you want to update, and then the value. So then in this case, we know that cell is the name cell, so we want to drag in the name value. So then you go back to to Monday.com, and you would grab the value of the name, and you drag that inside the quotes here. So we're going to update C8 with name Nancy Jones. Then we would do the same for the address 1. So this is the address 1 value is C9, address 2 value is C10, and then the amount. So we're going to do cell E14 with the amount from Monday.com. So we have name, address 1, address 2, and then drag in the last amount. This is a text value, and that's fine. If you set your column values in Google Sheets to be formatted as currency, then it'll automatically format that value when you plug it in. But this looks like it's good to go. This is all the cells that we want to update. So if we go ahead and call this, we should get an updated document. So we should have been, updating this customer invoice Nancy Jones specifically, and now it actually has the values from Monday.com. So this invoice is actually looking pretty good, looking printable. The other thing that's kind of cool is that this template actually copied over some of the formulas that were already in there. So it's automatically summarizing or summing of all of the values in this column. So to recognize that right away and update it properly. So this document's looking good to print. So the next step is to export it to PDF. So we're going to do another API call directly to Google Sheets to actually export the document as a PDF. So we're just doing a get method, and then we're going to call the Google Docs spreadsheet API, again, using the ID from the current spreadsheet that we've been working on. We're doing /export, and then providing some extra params. So we're going to say format equals PDF, portrait is true, so obviously we want it to be up and down, no grid, so it's a clean printable document, and then size equals A4. So ready for printing. We predefined our Google Sheets authorization again. So we've already got these credentials. You can just use those hopefully from your existing n8n account. And that's it. Since this is a get method, it's all handled through that. So if we go ahead and test that, we should hopefully get a PDF binary. So in this case, like this data just only exists in n8n. It didn't actually create it in Google Drive or anything like that yet. So this is kind of temporary. But it is the binary for the document, so we can click view, and there we go. Looks like a printable document, so we're good to go there. So like I said, since it's temporary, we need to actually save it. So we are going to do another HTTP request call. So we're going to directly call the Monday.com API. So we're going to call with a post, we're going to do api.monday.com/v2/file. And then we're going to use our predefined authentication for Monday.com since we're already connecting to it, so we can just plug those back in. In this case, we are going to send a body in, but we're going to send a form data. So the Monday.com API actually expects 3 different variables. So we're going to send in a query value. And most of this is already predefined. Like this doesn't have to really change, but we do need the Monday.com item. So we're going to go ahead and grab the Monday.com item that we're currently using. And again, you can just grab that from one of the previous nodes. So that would be that ID that we used. And then the column ID. So the column for the actual files column. And so you'd go down here and find your files column. So mine is after the amount. So there we go. And I would grab the ID for the files column and drag that in. And so that's when you can see these actual values. That's the ID of my files column. So we're making sure that I'm calling the correct column to add the file. So that's good to go. This next param is basically the same. It's just a form data, and I think this is all static. So they're expecting a map param, and then this value of just PDF variables.file. So that doesn't change. You can leave that as is. And then the last one is actually an n8n binary file rather than a form data, because we're going to let n8n handle the binary data. And again, they're expecting on Monday.com, they're expecting the PDF parameter. And then we're going to let n8n handle passing in the binary data that we generated. So just calling it data. n8n knows what to do with it in this case. And we're good to go. So this should hopefully pass our binary PDF into Monday.com and attach it to the files column. And it succeeded. So if we come back in here, you can see it jumped. There we go. So we've got a PDF document, and looks like the one we previewed from earlier. So we've got a PDF document attached to our Monday.com item. So pretty cool. So the last thing then is, like I said, I think we're actually going to change the status here so we can make sure that we aren't continually doing the same one over and over. So the last node is to then grab the Monday.com item and update its status. And so it's been a little tricky, I guess, with the looping through items for some reason. So what I'm actually doing is grabbing the item ID from the if statement. So if we grab that if and then that should give us the item. So I can actually go back and check that out real quick. So the if did the check on the Monday.com item itself, and so we can just grab that ID from there. So anyway, that's just to say, hey, like update that particular one. We're updating the status column, and then it does expect a JSON object for that, which is a little weird. So label stays the same. That part's static. That's what it's expecting. And then invoiced is just going to be the text value from whatever your status is. So it's one of these. In this case, I want invoiced. So that's the one I'm going to pass in. So if we do that step, then that should update the status of that particular item. And now it's changed to invoice. So it's been marked as invoiced, and it's got an invoice document. So it's good to go. So awesome. The rest of this spreadsheet, rest of this workflow should then update those other two items. So let's go ahead and test it. And luckily I have that catch. So the first one it's going to skip over because it's going to see that, hey, it's already been invoiced. Don't need to do it again. But then it should hit the other two items, and they should also get their own documents with their own updated data. So that has executed. So if we come back in here, off to a good start. Those statuses have changed. So we've got new statuses of invoiced. They have their own documents. And let's see. Is this a Bob Smith? This is a Bob Smith with correct data, updated amounts and address. So that looks good. And the last one here, Karen Brown. How did this one look? Karen Brown PDF has her name, new address, new amount. Looking good. Awesome. So that is pretty much it. That is your Monday.com invoicing system. Like I said, the last part here is that you can actually probably handle some actual automations on the Monday.com side if that's what you're using, where you could just check for these statuses to change, and then you could probably drop them down into this other board so they go into closed, and then you could also probably kick off an email to these people to say, hey, like here's your invoice, like please take care of it or whatever. But a really simple system, kind of a nice alternative to some of the other more complicated things like Panda Docs and DocuSign. You can literally just, set up an invoice document through Google Sheets, which is totally free. I think you can actually use Monday.com for free. Maybe not all the automations, but really kind of a pretty straightforward system. So thought that was really cool. Just wanted to go ahead and share that system. So hopefully that is helpful. Definitely let me know if you have any questions or comments about it. I will have a link to the system down below in the description. And thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next one.